Hey guys, this is Mr. H. Hey, I wanted to do a video on how to solve recursive sequences using the TI InSpy calculator. So I'm going to do 3 questions, and hopefully by the end of this, you will have a good understanding of how you can use the Inspire sequence mode to help you get this done. All right, so let me jump in. First thing, whenever you are trying to do a recursive sequence, you have to make sure that it is, in fact, a recursive sequence. And the way that you will know it on the Algebra 1 exam is that usually it will say recursive sequence. So this one says recursively defined. That's one way that I'll know. That's a good way to know that it's a recursive sequence. The other way, if there isn't the actual word recursive, you can look at this n minus 1. If you see n minus 1 or n plus 1 as a subscript, that's usually a good sign that you're dealing with a recursive sequence. What you can't use is you can't use the fact that you have a1. That basically is saying the first term. And you, most of the time, you'll be given the first term, whether it's recursive or an arithmetic or geometric, you're still going to see a1. And you're also going to see a sub n. So you can't use those to tell if it's recursive. You've got to use either the word recursive or something like a subscript or n minus 1 or n plus 1. Okay. All right. Now, so the second thing is you got to know what I think it's important to know exactly what a recursive sequence is. So I'm going to try to explain it by using some steps. All right. So this is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Now, in order to get to step 3, we've got to be on step 2. We can't jump from step 1 to step 3. We got to be on step 2. So a recursive sequence is basically saying, in order to get to the next term, you have to know what the previous term is. And if you don't know what the previous term is, you're not going to be able to get to that term. So they always, always, always have to give you the first term. And that's the first step. And then from there, you're going to build. So that if you wanted to get to the 4th step, you're going to have to first get to the 2nd step. Once you get to the 2nd step, then you're going to have to get to the 3rd step. Once you get to the 3rd step, then you can finally get to your 4th step. That's how a recursive sequence works. That's basically all it is. It's basically stepping through terms by using the previous term. All right, so now that you understand that, here is what we're going to do in order to use our calculator. All right, so it says we have this sequence defined recursively, and it says a sub 1 equals a negative 3, which means that's the initial term, which they must give us. And then it tells us that the sequence, recursive sequence, is a sub n equals a negative 3, a sub n minus 1 minus 2. Okay, and by the way, we are looking for the 4th term. So we want to get to the 4th step. Now, what we need to do is we're going to change from subscripts to parentheses. And this is what I mean. The calculator does not have subscripts. So what we're going to do instead of subscripts is we are going to replace them with parentheses. So in this case, wherever you see a subscript, you're going to make it into a parentheses. So this is going to be a negative 3 times a, and then this subscript of n minus 1, we're going to put inside a parentheses and make it n minus 1, and then it's going to be minus 2. So that's it. That's all you do. And once you've entered that into the calculator, it'll actually calculate the recursive sequence for you. So now let's actually go to the calculator and let's actually do that. First thing, you got to go to the graph feature. And normally it'll be in sequence mode. We have to put it into, well, no, I said that wrong. It'll be in function mode, and we have to put it in the sequence mode. So the way you do that is you go menu, you go to 3, and notice the first one is function, which is what we're in. Another one is relation, which we also use, but the one that we need is sequence. And then we're going to press sequence again. And once you've done that, you should see something like this. You should see a U1 with parentheses in, and then you're going to have this initial term, and then you're going to have this steps. And this steps is basically saying it's always going up by 1, and we can write terms from 1 to 99, but no more. We're not going to do anything with this, but these first two, we've got to enter information. And the way that I like to do it is I always like to start by putting in the initial term because I know exactly what that is. So if I go back over to my iPad, you can see the first term is a -3. So that's what I'm going to put in for the initial term. Boom, that's done. Now I'm ready to enter the sequence part. And just as I said before, we don't have subscripts. So anywhere that you see a subscript, you're just going to replace it with an N. So let's go. So I like to try to make the sequences look exactly as close to the actual sequence as possible. So I change that U1 and I put in an A, and then this is going to be N, and then it's going to be -3 times A sub 1. So, well, not A sub 1, it's going to be A, and then I'm just going to put in the parentheses part. So this is going to be parentheses N minus 1. N minus 1, close the parentheses, and then I subtract 2 from that. And then that's it. So go back over to the iPad and check it. So parentheses A sub n equals a -3 times A sub n minus 1 minus 2. So if I come over here now, that's right, press enter, and that's our sequence. But you're probably saying like, well, where is it? Well, all you have to do now is use menu 51. We're looking for the fourth term. So all I have to do once I press menu 41 is put in the fourth term, press enter, and it takes me to that value. So the fourth term is 67. Now, if I go back, I can circle 67. Boom, we're done. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, again, it says recursively defined. They've given us the first term, which is 5, and then we have this n plus 1. Now notice, last time the n minus 1 was on the right-hand side of the equation. This time it's on the left-hand side of the equation, but it doesn't matter. So here's what this is what it would look like with the subscript notation, but this is what it's going to look like in the calculator. It's going to be A, and we're going to put n plus 1, and then this is going to be 2 times A times n minus 7. Okay, so that's what I'm going to enter. Remember, the initial term is 5. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to delete the previous sequence. I'm going to go menu 14, press enter, and then I'm going to press tab. So I'm going to start with the initial term. It's 5. So I put 5 in, and then I'm going to put the actual sequence. So I'm going to get rid of this U1 and replace it with an A, and then inside the parentheses, I'm going to put N plus 1. N plus 1, and then over here, this is going to be 2 times A, and then it's going to be parentheses N. So all I do is put an N in there, and then I do -7, -7. And then I press enter. Bam, it's done. Now you don't see anything. That's okay. Last time I told you could use menu 51, and you absolutely can. But you could also use the table. So if you go Control T, it gives you the table. And for this problem, I don't know if I said this, we're looking for the fourth term. So we go over here, and the fourth term is a -9. So boom, got it. So let's go back and circle a -9. It's done. All right. So I hope so far this has been clear. I'm going to do one more question, and this one is a little bit more difficult. And the reason that it's more difficult is this question already has parentheses, but then when we actually enter it, we're going to have to add another set of parentheses for the subscript n minus 1. Again, it says recursive sequence. The first term is 3, but what we're going to do now is we've got to enter this. So one of the things I like to do is I like to write it before I enter it, so I know that I've got everything that I need. So this is how it looks with the subscript notation. I want to write it for the calculator. So I'm going to replace the subscripts with the parentheses. And so this is going to be 2. Now I got to have parentheses, but inside of there, I'm going to have 8, and this part is going to go inside with another set of parentheses, and then +1. That's it. This is what I've got to enter, and so let's go do that. So if I go here, get rid of the table, Control T, And then I'm going to do menu 45 to take me back to the starting point. It's still there. Let me try that again. Menu 14, delete it. So now what I'm going to do is press tab. I'm going to enter the initial term, which was 3. And then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to enter the sequence. So get rid of the U1, replace it with A. And then inside it was in, so that's fine. Now I'll go to the right-hand side and I'm going to go 2. And I have to put a set of parentheses there. And then inside that parentheses, I'm going to go A parentheses to indicate that subscript n minus 1. I'm going to go n minus 1, close the parentheses, and then it's going to be plus 1, and then I close the parentheses. So on the iPad, on the right-hand side, there were 2 sets of parentheses, and then on the calculator, there's 2 sets of parentheses. So I'm ready to go, and I press enter. And what term are we trying to solve for? We were looking, well, in this one, we need to do the second term, the third term, and the fourth term. Now, so you can use menu 51, but I think it would be easier to use the table since that gives you all of those terms at once. So the second term is going to be 8. The third term is going to be 18, and the fourth term is going to be 38. And I can even give you the fifth term. The fifth term is going to be 78. Okay, so if I go back to my iPad, you can see that the second term is 8, third term is 18, fourth term is 38, fifth term is 78. So we've knocked this problem out. I hope this is pretty clear to you. Basically, the only thing you need to do is whenever you see the subscript, you got to change that to parentheses, and you just have to be in the sequence mode. And that's pretty much it. All right, guys, I'm going to shut this down and I'm going to post it to my recursive sequence playlist. All right.